What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Master Crafted. Today, we are doing a quick little video talking about, we're taking it back to our roots, Phil, doing some just little tips and tricks videos on how to just generally be better at 40K. So how you doing, buddy? And tell us what the topic is.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited. I I'm feeling pretty good with 40K overall. Haven't had any slumps at the moment. I've really enjoyed 11th edition so far. I think I've, gotten able to get across some good tournaments and meet a lot of new players, which has been great. And it's really, kept my enjoyment of 40K up. But today we are going to talk about trash. We're going to talk about the part of the game that I think so many players they may make initial mistakes on, and unfortunately, it's going to cost them their entire game plan. I think there are multiple situations where, not evaluating their own trash properly or understanding how important that 60, 70, 100 point unit is to their overall game plan. And we want to break this down in a way that you can apply to your 11th edition game plans because this isn't the same as we saw in 10th edition. There is some more nuances towards what kind of trash that each type of disposition would possibly want. We're going to break down why we think each disposition will want those pieces of trash based on a little bit of analytics. So break down with us. We're going to do a little bit of math. And then overall, we're going to explain the different types of trash that some of these armies should be looking for. And maybe you can implement into your army. So Lane, yeah. Any initial thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on trash?
Yeah, so I think, and especially I think a lot of guard players, this has been one of the biggest things that have tripped them up in the transition to the new edition. And in 10th, right, the main thing when we looked at primary scoring was your ability to deny your opponent's primary. That was a huge part of your game plan in 10th edition. But now, so many of these 11th edition primaries and the way you can score them, it's so overcapped, right? Your ability to score 45 points of primary is so high that the way you look at the value of doing those things, it just isn't there. If I can deny your natural one, maybe even two turns, based off how many points you still have available to score, you could still max your primary. And my trash ended up having no effect on the game, right? That's one of the most obvious examples I can think of how the game has drastically shifted and how we need to reanalyze what we are putting in our lists to make sure we are actually getting the most value out of our trash, right? It's still going to be dependent on what disposition we're playing and how our army is built and what we are trying to do as our overall game plan on what trash we do take. But it's understanding that how you play missions is not the same, right? We can't just lean on high OC units that walk across the board and say, "Ha, you don't score."
Yeah.
Other things have stayed the same. The Combi Lieutenant, still one of the best action pieces in the entire game. 6-inch reactive moves when things can't get within 2 mean you have a 9-inch charge to ever touch it. That's brutal. That is still amazing, right? We were singing his praises all of 10th edition. So we're going to talk about the things that have changed, the things that have stayed the same, and how you should be really focusing on what you should be bringing and how that is going to help you achieve your victory through your game plan.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. And I'm just going to use this as an example so you understand why we're saying the things that we're, recommending here. This is the mission matrix. The link for this site is down below. I really like it. It's called GD Missions. It just has all the 11th edition missions. I'll pull them up on my phone to remind myself, especially when I'm doing a new disposition or building lists. I just need to remind myself. And this has this very nice matrix here, and it can break down every single combination of, taking hold and purge, whatever the case is, that has it all on here. Now, there is 25 mission cards total. Okay. That means that there technically is 25 total missions that you could do as a player. That does not mean that you will play all 25. You may never touch some of these, but the thing that you need to consider is 11 out of 25 of these have an action, period. Dot. 8 out of those 11 have actions that require some kind of OC, as in they have, I need to control the objective to complete the action, is pretty much what we're looking for as the caveat for that. And then everyone has 2 secondaries that have actions. They would be cleanse and plunder. Now, there are other secondaries that we'll talk about in a bit that everyone needs to be cognizant of, like secure no man's land, like defend stronghold, that you still need good trash to ensure that we're going to be able to score. But right off the bat, 11 out of 25 of those are action secondaries. And guess what? They're only in disruption, they're only in recon, they're only in priority assets. Lane, you know the answer to this question, but which one of these has the most amount of actions?
Priority assets is the only one that does not have a single mission with 0 actions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you best be packing them. Both Disruption and Recon each have 3 out of their 5 missions that have actions, and Purge and Take and Hold just were like, you know what? We don't want to do that. We want to stand places and we want to kill people. We don't want to mess with that. So if you're building those armies, right, you don't need to plan for as many action pieces at all, right? At most, you're going to have Cluns and you're going to have Plunder. And if you're playing I sit back and I do shooty things and I don't ever really go to your side of the board, you're probably not even planning to ever actually accomplish plunder. So you got one if that's your game plan. So that's one of the things, as we were talking about earlier, right? You are really going to have to look at how you are achieving your game plan and how you're going to be scoring points, right? Just because Take and Hold and Purge don't have a ton of actions, though, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be bringing trash units, right? We're still going to need things to do multiple other jobs, right? You still need things, whether it's trading trash, right? Just because you don't have things that are out there to do actions and very, very cheap doesn't mean that you shouldn't also try to have things that are very cheap that can go very efficiently kill your opponent's trash, right? You can plan like the game around that, right? JPI's a great example of something that can run out there, can efficiently go kill your opponent's trash. As a Purge player, get you that trade without feeling like you really traded down or had to overexpose a shooting asset just to clear a piece off the field. So there's definitely a lot of different aspects to this, and we want to just kind of touch on all of them so you can take those into your list building.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say for a newer player that's getting into competitive 40K, you will find that if you're playing against a player that is, maybe a little bit more experienced than you, has a good, better understanding of their list and your list, you will find that that's where you're going to start to fall behind right off the bat of my opponent has trash pieces that want to go out and do the actions, and those trash pieces have certain attributes that mean I don't want to down trade with it, or I don't want to like go out and shoot it, or I can't even interact with it at all because it's hidden, it's behind the wall, and it's got a great OC. And like, why did my opponent have a 10 OC unit for their natural? Like, that seems really good, and I don't have anything in my army that can go out and touch it and flip that natural objective, which means they can be as far away from me as possible, meaning I can't interact with them, means it's very, very tough for me to play the game. And
Yeah.
I have found in my experience that's the first place the majority of players trip up. And unfortunately, when you lose your trash or you're not effective with your trash, it doesn't matter how lethal you are, you will eventually lose the game.
Yeah. 100%. It is definitely a balancing act to make sure we are taking all of these things into account. In your experience, Phil, I know you have played a lot of recon and some disruption, right? These are the medium builds, right? When you're looking at those missions, especially disruption, where it's so varied, right? You are playing a very reactive mission based off your opponent a lot of the times within that, and I think that's a thing that people struggle with. How have you handled that with being able to go, I need trash pieces that can fill multiple roles?
Yeah. It's honestly very faction dependent. I think every faction can possibly do it a little bit differently. So, like for recon, for example, and then I think in some aspects of disruption as well. A lot of the things I'm looking for in trash is like do they have a shoot and scoop? Like, can they move after they shoot? That's pretty important for me for trash. Do they have good right? Like I'm right off the bat. Hey, these are not just battle line units, but they're like 2 OC units that I can go out and get on objectives with. Do they have infiltrator scout? That super incredibly valuable for me. Do they have good mobility? Right? Like, yes, can I make do with 6-inch base move, Space Marines or whatever, soon to be 8-inch base move Space Marines? Yes, that's perfectly fine. I'm perfectly okay with all of those things. But I need something that differentiates it from just your base stock units. I need some kind of tool, and then I incorporate that into my game plan. So I'll give you an example. Flamer Acolytes for Gene Stealer Call. Those are fantastic pieces. One, because they're 2 OC a piece. So they can go on, they're 5 mans, they're 10 OC, they're dirt cheap. I can bring them back. They reroll wounds if you're on objectives. And I have a way to like hit you with a mortar. And then now I'm +1 AP. So now, yes, I am only strength 3, but I'm rerolling all wounds. I have +1 AP. Like, Don't be an elf or admech standing on an objective. I'll probably barbecue you, and then my combat is reasonable, so I will charge into you as well. And looking to flip an objective, get enough OC on there, and then I don't care what happens after that. Eldar as well, right? Like they have different types of trash. That's very good. Warp spiders obviously a little expensive, but that's still, a trading piece that's still incredibly efficient. They can get onto objectives and absolutely barbecue some stuff and then get away, which is really, really nice to have. You have overall, some striking scorpions, rangers, shroud runners. You have tools. Same thing with guards, space marines, infiltrators, and cursors. I could just like run down the list of all of these things, but what differentiates them is whatever tool they have. Incursors have an incursor mine. They don't have a reactionary move. They're not necessarily all that fast, but they do have the assault keyword and they have access to grenades. They also have their incursor mine. Like they have tools in the trash that they are, and if I choose to bring them into my list, like I have to use them effectively in recon, in disruption, in priority assets because they have a job to do. And then the same thing in purge and take it home.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's been one of the largest adjustments for myself is in general, the trash I am preferring to take is trash that can also be traded. The game at 11th I have found feels like it is far more ramped up on how quickly we are churning through each other's models a lot of the time, and having units that I can put out there that actually have potential damage they can apply, as you're talking about with like the incursor mine and can buff your army, are very, very handy. 10 guardsmen now, just in general, their stock is so low to me, like in terms of spamming it, because it's nice to have high OC sitting on my natural. But the job of going out there and taking space, I can do with almost anything else now. Because 3-man Ogren, they actually can shoot and charge things. They have higher strength and higher tough or higher strength attacks, whether it is now in melee and in shooting, which I don't know if you'll know this, strength 5 weapons are now much more important. So you're going to be wanting those. But I think that's a big thing for me personally is like it's so hard to spam trash units that are just there to not ever really be a threat. I guess I've just found that you can have one or two, right? Like a combi lieutenant is never there to kill anything, but it's just never interact. Or if they do want to interact with it, it just really is they're positioning in a certain way or dealing with it in a way that they don't want to, which I think is very, very valuable. And then let's see, we've already talked about, right, high OC stuff is always going to be good for holding. And then we also have trading. That's kind of what I was talking with there. I want my trash that's doing my zoning and doing my screening, trying to make sure that Phil, with his big brick of guys that fall from the sky and delete anything they see with his death watch, right? I need to make sure I have things that I can just freely say, you know what, this is going to just go stand out there. And I'm going to make sure if he wants to get into my pieces, he either is, having to deal with his screen first and then deal with it a turn later, maybe, and buy myself that time, or he just hopefully can't interact with it at all. Right. So we still have those things, but if I can get a trade out of it instead, because I'm not going to deny you points, I can't plan to just run guardsmen out there and touch an objective and say, you don't score this and it makes a difference. Right. I need to be able to put an asset out that can deal with hopefully a trading piece of his and also just take up space at the same time. Like that is one of the really big things I've been looking for within guard building is just it's cheap enough. It can put damage on something. And when I lose it, it still didn't hurt.
Yeah. I think as lists become more and more tuned, it is definitely a huge part of like its only job can't be that. So I'll give you an example of like a non-traditional trash piece, which is the Thunderstrike Storm Speeder. There were some matchups where if I'm using that and it doesn't matter, like my opponent isn't running any vehicles or monsters, maybe it's all infantry spam, but I'm playing a singles tournament or a team's tournament and I took that for a specific purpose. That now becomes a trash piece because I have other units that are more valuable and I'm going to use that Thunderstrike in place of it. I'm going to be more aggressive with it. I'm going to use the screen or it's 3 OC. I could flip an objective if my opponent's not careful. And then I'm going to use it to make sure that I can maintain space in my own deployment zone or maintain space around my natural. It's like I don't actually care about this unit. Yes, is it expensive? Yeah, it's a little expensive, but it doesn't affect my game plan by losing it And at the end of the day, I need something to push out there, and I'd rather you lose that, believe it or not. My apologies. I'd rather lose that than losing cursors because my cursors are incredibly important for my game plan, right? I want to continuously activate as many times as possible the +1 to hit. The second I lose that +1 to hit, uh, a lot of my units become a lot less efficient. So yeah, it's like trash in the traditional sense isn't just like a 70-point unit. Trash every game will change in terms of who you're playing into, what the matchup is, what the disposition combination is, right? Because as we talked about in the beginning, not every mission has actions that you need to do. Not every mission has OC as a mandatory item for a lot of the scoring objectives. So like there are things that you can do that you're going to want to adjust game in and game out. But let's hammer it home, Lane. We sat down and we said, hey, there's some categories of trash that we think every player should put in the back of their head of when they're list building. What kind of trash fits the disposition and then the type of army we're playing. So, Lane, what's the first type of trash that you think is going to be the most impactful for players?
So it's going to be the most common. Almost every single mission it has something that says, hey, hold your natural, right? So at the end of the day, we still want at least one pretty high OC piece that we can hold our natural with. That's going to be a baseline no matter what you're playing. It's going to feel generally pretty good to make sure, even if your opponent has some high pressure or high things like that, as long as you're doing maybe a little screening in front of it and they kill it and move on, they're never denying you that 4 points, right? It's a very low bar. That thing is probably never moving off, hiding behind the back wall. That thing is just sitting there, but it's making sure you get your 4 points.
Yeah. What do you think the cap is? Well, if you were to build a singles list, like if you were to give a recommendation of the minimum amount of OC that you kind of need for that OC piece of trash, what would you recommend?
I would say preferably you're looking to be at least 12, at
Mm.
least. It's nice to be higher, but a lot of early scouting pieces and things that can get across the board quick, they aren't generally 20 OC. They're not things in general that can make it across there, especially if you've done any kind of screening that can really deal with it. Now, maybe your opponent does have, if for some reason your opponent's running 10 catachans that can scout 6, move 9, and then advance onto your point, sure, they can get 20 OC on there. But at that time, you know that. So just put your infiltrators in front of them if you were really worried about it. At the same time, that's also, it doesn't do them good unless they get there round 2, right? You have a full turn of really prepping and really staging. So in general, a lot of the time, you just want to make sure you can put at least 12 OC is preferred. In some cases, you'll even be fine with 6, right? If you're Marines versus Marines and you can put 6 OC on there, their scouts aren't going to deny you. They're not going to stop you from doing your action, right? Like 6 is a nice breakpoint, 12 is the preferred, and then anything over that, we're just really feeling great.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are levels to it, right? Because just normal intercessors, they can get on an objective and you could put 3 guys on there. And what I usually do in situations where I'm trying to make sure that my natural is secured is I'm measuring everything within range. Like anything that can go out and touch my natural objective, I'm saying, okay, well, I'm verifying how many guys can you actually get on here for the amount of OC that you need to actually flip this, and then I'm making sure I'm doing my portion of, hey, I'm going to make sure that I still control this because at the end of the day, like we still need to control our natural. That is 4 points minimum, pretty much across the board. There's a few variations in there. Some give you 5, which is nice, but like you have to find ways to control your natural, and just having enough OC is a very, very straightforward way, especially for newer players to make sure that they control it. But there is an aggressive type of OC trash right on the other side of it where we're looking at, okay, well, this type of trash, I'm looking to flip my opponent's natural objective or the middle, and I need a certain amount of OC on there as well. Well, I'm looking at minimum 5 OC, right? Like I at least need 5 the majority of the time. That's not always the case, right? Like some 3 is a lot of these bigger units, Beast and Nurgles, Storm Speeders, the new ones, just like a 5 man of infiltrators on a natural objective or in cursors. Like, 5 is a very reasonable number. And all we realistically need to do is contest, right? All I need to do is get onto some of these objectives and make sure that I'm putting myself in a position where I'm contesting the objective, not necessarily flipping it and preventing my opponent from actually scoring whatever it is they're trying to score, whether it's central objectives or additional objectives. All of those things desperately, desperately matter. for a player that's actually trying to score some of these points.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. What is the next most important in your mind, Phil? After just being able to hold it down, try to, maintain your easy primary every round. What is the next type of trash piece that you're like, you know what? When I'm building my list, this is the next thing that has to go in.
Yeah, so this I think it is really important and it's for every single one, but it's trading trash, right? Like things that I need to go out to be able to go do something, specifically kill an asset, right? Like I need X, Y, and Z to die, and I need it to die before I commit something real. And obviously I'm not like trying to kill a 10-man Terminators with, 5 JPI. Like that's not what we're looking for here, but there are key pieces in a lot of your opponent's armies that need to be removed, whether it be screening pieces that need to die before you bring your big brick of granite terminators in, or it's, action pieces that are going to continually like a beast of Nurgle on the center on priority assets, just hitting the button over and over again. You have to find a way to stop that. And it's usually by either killing the beast of Nurgle or auto seeing it. But auto seeing it has its own problems because then the beast of Nurgle is still going to turn around and press the stupid button. So like he has to die eventually. You have to kill him. And there's so many levels of things that you need to kill. So like killing a beast of Nurgle is drastically different than trying to kill a 5-man of like striking scorpions, right? Like those are two drastically different things in terms of the tools you need to have. But if you're an army, let's say purge the foe, and this is I think a huge trap that a lot of players fall into. So purge the foe traditionally in the beginning of 11th edition, people are like, I'm running 5 units, 6 units. You will never get kill more than me, right? Because I only have 5 units, and I'm just going to look to every time I activate and kill something, I will have killed more because my army is more lethal than yours, and I'm doing more things than you, so on and so forth. Well, there's a problem with that mentality. Can be is okay, you have 5 incredibly lethal units, but all I did was give you trash, right? Pieces that you have to come out and poke for. And I still have lethality in my army, and I am going to poke out and I might kill one or two of your really important pieces. Are you going to still be able to play the game at that point? Are you still going to be able to score and do the things that you need to do? Or have you lost so much of your lethality that the game becomes drastically harder for you? So that trading trash is like even important for purge. So if you look at, you know, you look at BCP for our last tournament, I was running purge the foe with Deathwatch. I still had plenty of trash. I still had incursors in there. I still had land speeders in there. I still had storm speeders. I still had, multiple bricks of things. I was not just locked. I had a 5 mana Decimus just for the 10 OC, which is scoring trash and trading trash and objective controlling trash. It did all three things for me. But like I needed that trash even to play Purge because I had to be able to kill things before my real units came out to actually kill something. Because at the end of the day, Purge still needs trash. Take and hold still needs trash because if I'm committing real assets before my opponent commits real assets, you're gonna fall behind. And I could see that. I've seen that multiple times in 11th edition in terms of players struggling with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's been just the biggest adjustment is really just we need stuff that can kind of take up space when needed. But in general, if you cannot keep the pace of the game and the tempo of the game going correctly by trading adequate pieces for what your opponent gives you, it puts you in a really tough spot. You need to have those things in your list that can actually just go and kill something, right? As Phil said with the Beast of Nurgle, sure, I could put a bunch of guardsmen on the center so that I get to press the button in the middle, but if I don't actually deal with the Beast of Nurgle, it just doesn't matter, right? They're going to clear the guardsmen, they're going to push the button again, and I still have the same problem the next turn. So taking a more lethality based approach where units, you just say, you know what? It's going to go out, it's going to kill something, and it's going to die. That's a lot of how I think so much more of list building needs to be done in 11th versus 10th, because you can stage so close. These 11th edition maps, especially infantry and beast units with hidden and gone to ground, you can get so close to your opponent's army with just pre-measuring to understand melee threat ranges and then just understanding, where they can get to with their shooting assets. You can stage so aggressively that just continuously being able to trade with your opponent with good, efficient trades and understanding what pieces do those things well, I think is just so critical to building good lists in 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. It is not easy to understand that. And I'll caveat this with there's no price cap on trash pieces, right? Like I think a good example of this is like a 3 mana sanguinary guard with a character. I hate to break it to you, Blood Angels players, but that's a trading piece. That's a piece of trash that we need to go out and potentially go do something. Yes, is that a little more expensive? But if it means we keep our 6 mana sanguinary guard or the 10 mana death company or the ball preds or something like that, you know, depending on the opponent that I'm going into, that 3 mana sanguinary guard is really, really important to get the pace of the game going in a certain direction. So killing that Beast of Nurgle, yeah, okay. Sanguinary guard with the character, they get it done. They get the job done. And your opponent has to put out real things to go out and kill it. Because, we talked about this multiple times and you can look back at all our videos, we say it. Like trading isn't always about the intrinsic value of the unit that you killed versus the unit that you gave up. So like if you gave up a 250 point unit and you only killed a 100 point unit, that does not mean it's a bad trade. Now, there are things that you need to look for when you do that. Hey, have I forced my opponent? Have I removed the last piece of my opponent's trash? Right. And now they have to come out with the real things that I want to get into. And I am now up in terms of assets. Great. Fantastic. Then it's worth it. Don't get tied up in the value of your unit versus your opponent's unit. That doesn't actually show, how you're doing in the game.
Yep, I 100% agree. And then I think before we get into the one that is probably the most dependent on what primaries you're playing or disposition you're in, I think the next biggest and the next most important are things you are using to zone and to screen. These things are also going to be fairly common across all of the detachments and all of the dispositions because you're still going to need things that can just take space and deny space. I gave the example against Phil's Death Watch. People are going to have Blood Legion that wants to just drop in rapid ingress and come eat your lunch with Blood Crushers, right? Unless you want to get ran over with cows, you need to push them back, right? Like you need to be ready to have those things. And as I mentioned before, right, we can still try to have units that are capable of both, right? And you don't even have to be using, you don't have to think of all of the screens as aggressive forward facing screens, right? Gaunt's Ghosts, Pioneers, the bikes for Votan, right? They're generally just sitting in the back for most of the game, but they're doing a very important job of making sure that we don't have to turn around ever, right? With both Pioneers and Gaunt's Ghost, as soon as we know that that job is taken care of, right? Our opponent's all on the table. They don't have any up down themselves, right? We can up down that piece ourselves and then either go take space, right? Go do an action. And they also aren't horrible lethality pieces. Like Gaunt's Ghosts aren't like the most killy thing in the world, but they can still do some damage against the right targets, right? Same with those Pioneers, those bikes, right? You're going to be seeing units like that intrinsically getting value because they not only fill that role, but they can do other things very well on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just in terms of like screening units, once again, anything could be a screening unit. If you lose, like, I'll give an example, like 3 of your incursors, so you only have 2 left. There's a real world where you just send those 2 incursors up, you advance them, you push them as far forward as possible to maintain the screen, and you put something else now behind those incursors on that natural objective or that center objective or your opponent's expansion to make sure that you keep that space. So like, but initially, your initial screens are based on infiltrators, are based on scouts. It's like, or high mobility units, land speeders. I keep harping on them, but I love them. Like they do everything for me. And overall, they are one of those pieces of trash that can do multiple roles depending on the matchup that I'm going into. So, yes, that screening trash, that taking space trash is probably the least in terms of like anything can do it, but I probably want it to be my cheapest thing. But I need it to do more than just that. Like if my game plan comes down to, hey, this 10 man of or this 5 man of flayed ones, its only job is to screen. Well, I'll just tell you right now, then your game plan is not fleshed out as much as it should be. Because there should be matchups where it's your scoring piece of trash, right? There should be matchups where it's now controlling your natural objective. There should be matchups where you're pushing your opponent's natural objective, right? Based on terrain layouts and staging and what your opponent actually has. Every single one of those, our trash should be able to fill multiple roles, and we have to be able to analyze that because there's not a piece of trash in the game that shouldn't be doing multiple things depending on the matchup and the dispo. So Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And last but not least, the button pushers, the nerds that we have just going, I did the thing. All right. Those are the ones we need to look at specifically for priority. If you don't have probably at least two, if not three of these, just for redundancy and the various missions, playing sabotage, you're trying to do up to three actions on objectives every turn if you can. Right. So doing two is like the minimum, the goal, and you might lose that first one out in the center. So making sure we are planning on, hey, what do I have that I don't mind sitting there that's got, useful things for durability, right? Bury for Leagues of Votan, things that stand up on death, things that reactive move, like a lieutenant with combi. Those things make it so much easier to potentially get that additional value out of doing those actions again without requiring an additional unit. So that is like those are the top tier. You can also still just if your army has access to really really cheap, especially fast pieces, and you go, oh, that was like 50 points. I don't mind taking like 3 of those units. That doesn't feel bad, right? If it's required for your army to just do that thing to score the points, then you can build for that. And I think this is the most clear cut one, Phil, honestly doing the action. It tells you where you're going to be. You know before the game starts if you've read your mission cards where you need to put them in deployment, where you're going to be doing the action, and like there is something we said right. Phil did say like 8 of the 11 of those cards require you to hold the objective, right? So you can take that into account too. You're going to have to say, well, do I need one piece that's high OC early? Because as we said, right, we didn't want to overcommit to kill them off, right? And you can, there, not every time is I have to kill the beast of Nurgle. You want to kill the beast of Nurgle, but maybe based off how your army works and just you're at turn 2, turn 3, you can't start trading as early. You just do have to bring something that's 5 OC minimum to go step on the center and say, well, we still at least got it this turn. And after that, my lieutenant's going to step out there when I've pushed my army into the center, and they just really can't worry about it. They can't take the time to kill the lieutenant because I just have too much going on for them to deal with.
Yeah. And I think this is like the most straightforward, as Lane is saying, is realistically take and hold and purge. You're not taking push the button trash pieces.
Yeah.
Realistically, that is not what you're doing. You should not have that in your army, period. Dot. Disruption, recon, priority assets 100%. But the priority assets trash pieces, 4 out of the 5 require some kind of OC. Like you need to control the objective. Now, we keep bringing up Beast of Nurgle because he's like the quintessential button pusher, I think, because he's got great OC, he's got great durability, he's got an invul, incredibly high toughness, and he's got a dumb ability that if you don't kill him, he's just going to regen all his wounds, which is
Yeah.
just like some armies can't deal with that because that means you have to put a real asset out there, and the Chaos Demon or Chaos Knight or CSM player is like they're starting the game. The Death Guard player is like starting the game faster than you probably want to, which is incredibly difficult for some armies to deal with. And that's why we keep bringing him up. He's like the quintessential dude because there are not many models that are single models that are cheap relatively that can go out there and push the button on repeat and also survive at 3OC. Like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like Combi Weapon Lieutenant, he's only one. A Captain in Gravis, he's only one, right? Like, and then if you look at, Eldar, right? Like they're 5 mans. That's 10 OC. They can get out there and push the button, but they're not killing the piece of Nurgle on the other side. But then I think there's something really interesting to say for like, hey, believe it or not, the Avatar is a push the button trash piece in some scenarios for Eldar. So I've, toyed around with it and played a couple games. Like there's a very real world where I walk the Avatar out on the center objective with priority assets and I just push the button. Okay. What do you want to put out to actually come after the Avatar? Do you want to put something real out there? Because I have the rest of my army behind me that's waiting for you to overcommit into him and to try to kill him. Because otherwise, he's going to keep pushing the button because he's got great OC. I can put him behind terrain. I can give him benefits of cover. Like he is durable as shit. Like he can survive a lot of stuff, but he is well over the cost of a Beast of Nurgle. But every army kind of has to have that push the button a unit tailored to what they're capable of doing. So, like, if you have a question as to, hey, Phil, Lane, I run whatever, let's say Necrons on priority assets. What's my push the button unit? you have so many choices, right? That could be something as crazy, like, it's majority of the time it's not a Catan, like, I'll just tell you right now, majority of the time, it's probably not him. Maybe there's a world where, like, you evaluate your opponent's army and you're like, "They actually just can't kill me without giving me everything." Well, then maybe the Catan is your boy, but, you have access to great characters, you have access to wraiths, which are probably the quintessential push the button unit. Like, yes, are they incredibly expensive? Yes. No one's ever gonna kill it, right? Like, you're gonna go out there, you're gonna touch it with one, you're gonna press the button, they're gonna try to shoot it away, they're never gonna kill it all, you're gonna regen back onto the objective, and then now you're gonna flip the objective and do the button push again, right? Is that the same as a Beast of Nurgle? No, absolutely not. But it is the way that Necrons do it. They do it with warriors too, right? Like, I could go out there with the 20 mana warriors, one guy touches it, okay, he gets blasted off and you kill a couple more, but now the whole unit regens and I'm back on the objectives with great OC and flipping it over and over again. And that presents a problem that the majority of players, unless they've really thought about it in their game plan and plan for it, it's very difficult. And I think that's probably the thought I want to end with is trash a lot of the times is about presenting your opponent with a unique problem. Is it, regenerating Necrons? Is it, a rapid ingress with deep strike on an objective that forces your opponent to screen even further than they want to prevent it from happening and flipping primary? Is it a reactionary move? Is it having damage? Is it the unit stands back up on death? Is it, lone off or stealth or hidden or go to ground? Like, all of these things are the problems that you present your opponent, and good trash will do that in spades. It's just you got to crack that codex open. You have to find the data sheets that are going to benefit your game plan. Because as we said, and Lane and I can attest to, there is no such thing as a cap on trash. There is such a thing as not making sure it's a part of your game plan. Because for Lane, he'll tell you right now, his Bulgrin, a lot of the times, are trash. They're not cheap though.
They
So they
aren't they
will
aren't
go out
going out
there.
there to kill hardly anything half the time. And in a matchup where I know that they have fast units, they could go kill, whether I have Sly Marbo or any just like 5 man of engineers scouting forward, right? I know they could kill that. Because of the way the terrain is laid out, almost all of the priority maps, I can go stand on the middle objective with at least 3 Bolgrin that can go up to OC2. And that's the first thing I put out because I want to present the Beast of Nurgle problem, right? I want you to say, well, shit, I can't commit anything cheap to kill that. And I can't commit my big stuff to kill that, or else I'm going to just get rocked, right? Because of Gone to Ground, because of Hidden, I can place them in spots where especially if I go first, you didn't even get a chance to stage for a turn, right? I'm
Mm,
just going to put that on there and say, well, can you beat 6 OC or can you kill these Bulgrin? The answer is probably not. That's why the Beast of Nurgle is so good. You scout 6 and you go touch an objective, and most people's early trading pieces that they have thought of as, kind of the remainder of 10th is, well, I just need stuff that can go kill scouts, right? And in today's world, I think it's the opposite. You need something that can go like as a guard player. I am more and more tempted to be like, I'm gonna throw in a unit of 10 Kazarkin and a Torox that I can advance, disembark, and shoot the shit out of something.
mm,
And I'm doing that turn one because if I can clear my opponent's cheap trash and the rest of the game, like from the rip, if I can do that and my opponent has to action with things they weren't planning on and I've disrupted their game plan, there's so much more value in that now than there was before. Because that's the thing. That's why these units, like the Beast of Nurgle, like me just standing on there with Bulgrin, Lionel Johnson, Gilliman, who have 3-inch loan op, and could just stand on the back of an objective. If you have pre-measured and you know your opponent can't come touch it because they are important pieces, they can just be your button pusher. Like, I think it's so valuable to truly understand the way the trading game works in 11th and how important it is to understand when you should be using specific pieces to do your actions. After your Beast of Nurgle has maybe not even died or has died, right? It's fine because they've committed you as a demons player. We know you're not a shooting army. Your ass is in the midboard. All right. Now your scribes or whatever other cheap trash it is can come touch the back of that objective and they're not going to deal with it. They literally can't most of the time, right? As long as you're playing an even-ish game. If you're losing, sure, they'll get it. But even in an even game, and then especially in a winning game, they're just not going to stop your cheap, fragile pieces from scoring at that point.
yeah. Yeah, and it makes all the difference, right? Like, if I think of the, you know, everything will, a great plan is good up until you get, punched in the mouth, right? Like then everything goes to the wind. But I think 40K, a lot of the times, you can put yourself in a position where as long as you have a good understanding of your opponent's army, which is incredibly difficult. Like I am under no preconceived notion that Lane and I are very fortunate where we play a lot of 40K. We talk about a lot of 40K. We have great players in our community that we can hit up and they can tell us like about their faction and all of those things that make it a lot easier for us to understand. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to understand everything that's going on in your army. We've done videos in the past. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. Strongly recommend like just getting familiar with your opponent's factions. That's a huge part of the game. But like once you have a good understanding of what your opponent can do and what they're capable of doing, you should be able to relatively predict the status of the game. It should not feel random the majority of the time. Yes, dice will always play a factor, but like you should relatively have a pretty good game plan going forward of what it is that you need to do. And with pre-measuring all that stuff, like you should make certain things a 0% possibility. Like I'm going to make sure you cannot kill my trash, right? I'm going to make sure you either don't have the number of shots to do it, right? Like physically, the number of dice that this unit rolls with shooting or combat, like I know it can't kill my trash. Great, fantastic. That's even better. But every single one of those decisions that you need to make is incredibly, incredibly important because otherwise you're going to put yourself in a position where the game feels unstable as you go through, and then all the work you did to create a game plan are pretty much worthless.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a great note to end it on. I think we've talked ad nauseum about a lot of these subjects, and we were planning to make this a 20-minute video, but we just got too into it, Phil. But I think this is a lot of great information. We covered not only kind of how to view your trash and how to do your list building, but the real thing here has also been how to approach the trading game in 11th edition has also just kind of slipped its way into this video in very great detail. So I think that's great. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Please comment. Please like the video. That helps us out tremendously. And if you would love to talk more with us, join the Discord. It is linked below. And as always, do not forget that victory isn't given, it is forged, and is forged right here at Master Crafted. We will see you all next time.
See you guys.